What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Today, by request, an old request. There are so many of them. It'll be 5 years next month. The request line has done this in that time. But first edition, the Arcanist, half wizard, half sorcerer, stronger than both. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Patreon is the #1 way to support the channel. Get a bunch of Google Sheets, and I'm running a bunch of 1E games still. If you want to, do way too much crazy, terrifying magic shit, we can make that happen too. For now, let's dive in. Okie dokie, so since Arcanists are so unique and so different, before we get down to the actual build, we need to explain, of course, how they function. So the thing about Arcanists is they cast from the Sorcerer Wizard list, prepare from a spellbook like a wizard, but their spells are not expended when they're cast. They're like spontaneous casters. They can cast spells that they have prepared containing a spell slot of that level, assuming they haven't burnt through all of their spell slots. It feels a lot like the Arcane Evolution ability of Sorcerers in 2nd edition, how you could then pull from a spell book and then have this resource that was very easy to learn more magic and then go wide in combat with the things you had prepared. Literally, it's the best of both worlds on this one. And to really drive that half and half bit home, their spells and their save DCs are modified off intelligence, and the stuff they get from their Arcanist feats, aka their exploits, is driven off their charisma. They have an extra resource known as an arcane reservoir that by default contains a number of points in it equal to 3 plus half their level, but can have at max 3 plus level ranks. In addition to a bunch of other stuff we'll talk about later with their exploits, they can expend 1 point from their arcane reservoir as a free action whenever they cast a spell on their spell list to either increase the caster level of that spell by 1, making things last longer, potentially making spells tick up for that like +1 for every 3 caster levels that you sometimes see, or increase the spell's DC by 1. Though they can only expend 1 point on a given spell in this way. They may also, beginning at first level, expend an available spell slot as a move action a number of times per day equal to their charisma mod, and doing so adds a number of points to their arcane reservoir equal to the level of the spell slot consumed, which helps fuel that thing that the Arcanist does, which is literally bending and breaking the laws of magic for value. For this being like the first time I've ever looked at this class in a real deep fashion, there's a lot of really cool stuff they can get up to. A lot of, like, if you imagine yes-ands for the various schools of magic, casting styles, so on and so forth. We will today be building on the shell of the Brownfur Transmuter. We all like magic that makes things go boom, die instantly, or be paralyzed for the rest of their lives, which is often spelled out in the order of seconds. Transmutation casters don't get as much love oftentimes. That's because their magic can only target them, so the build ends up being very wonky at the beginning with very high strength that you're not doing anything with, or frankly, you're just a druid. Again, the Arcanist gets to yes and the transformation school and do it in a couple of really interesting ways. They replace their 3rd level and 9th level Arcanist exploit for powerful change and share transmutation. The former, whenever they cast a transmutation spell using one of their Arcanist spell slots, they may expend 1 point from their arcane reservoir as a free action to bolster the spell. If that spell grants a bonus to an ability score, the bonus then increases by 2. If it grants a bonus to more than 1, only one of the ability scores is buffed. They can't expend more than 1 point in this way, so you can't like bull strength into bull's very much strength. And then at 9th level, a Brownfur Transmuter can expend 1 point from their arcane reservoir to change any transmutation spell with a range of personal, your beast shapes, your monstrous physiques, your fey forms, so on and so forth, to a range of touch. This allows us to, for example, on our non-draconic Blood Ragers, if we'd like to Form of the Dragon them to give them a huge bonus to their strength score and a bunch of natural attacks, or maybe the rogue just really needs Pounce to, in the first round of combat, drive too many d8s directly into somebody's face because you turn them into I don't know what has pounce and can also hold weapons off the top of my head, but it totally exists. We all know this. Hybrid form of a were-tiger. There's probably something that does that, right? Yeah, of course. Now, one thing before we go a whole lot farther on this, something I want to bring up because I think it's really important. I think having a very frank conversation with everybody at the table about, hey, this is the thing I'm building, this is what it does, is really important to healthy gaming in the first place. However, when you're playing something that's going to snap their fingers and turn someone into someone else, this definitely feels like a build you want to make sure everyone's on board with before you show up with it. I have a lot of players at my tables, and have in the past, where like if cosmetic changes happen to their character, it makes them uncomfy, or like they have a certain image in their head of, here's this thing I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna run at it with my long spear and stab it. And though, sure, mechanically turning them into something big and scary via undead anatomy is mechanically better, if it's killing someone's power fantasy, don't do that. With that in mind, we're not going to touch on those spells nearly as much as the lower-end transmutation spells that modify ability scores without necessarily polymorphing folks. But for the build, 20 levels of Arcanist, because all of our stuff must come from Arcanist spell slots. For our race, it's a Perikin Azamar. I think I did a video about these guys, right? Follow this card. I'm sure I don't sound stupid on the internet for having forgot that I didn't do this. It's fine, don't worry about it. A race with a bonus to our 2 most important ability scores with no negs is just real important for us. Like a lot of other classes in 1E Pathfinder, we have one and only one dump stat. We want to make sure we're padding in exactly the right ways. For our traits, first off, Transmuter of Karada says that whenever we cast a spell from the Transmutation School, their effects manifest at +1 caster level, meaning oftentimes spells will tick for a minute or 10 minutes longer, which is huge in long dungeon crawls. Additionally, the trait allows us to choose from either Bear's Endurance, Bull's Strength, Cat's Grace, Eagle's Splendor, Fox's Cunning, or Owl's Wisdom. Those spells that we don't ever cast because we're getting them on our belts. Once per day when we cast them, their duration is doubled, though cannot also be extended, but the double was probably good enough, right? Secondly, we'll be taking, because we're an Azamar, Ethical Leader, which gives us a +1 trait bonus to our leadership score if all our cohorts and followers have an alignment within 1 step of our alignment. Why, yes, we're talking about leadership today. I literally just altered my house rules for leadership. TLDR, they say you can't just quickly make a second character concept so you can forget about your first, and ooh-wee, I'm so excited about this new build that I made, and if anyone in the party is rude to them, it counts as if you were for the purposes of their stuff, and that the GM is the final arbiter of what they do and how they react to things and so on and so forth. So it's not just a strict power gaming tool. The other side of that coin is when we are grabbing several low hit dice things, but also have the ability to cast magic that goes above and beyond what it's supposed to do, and that's what we're planning to do every day. Those little guys go a lot farther. It seems like a good time to try it out. For our ability score prioritization, intelligence followed very closely, as in probably a modifier of 1 closely, by charisma. We need him to cast magic and fuck with the laws of magic to cast magic. It's our whole thing. Constitution, dexterity, and wisdom are the save stats, the HP stats, the initiative stats, the important stats. Depending on the point buy, keep them as high as you can, even if it's just like a 10 or a 12. Strength probably by default goes to the Arcanist's floor, because you just need everything else, you know? For our feats, the first 3 at 1st, 3rd, and 5th, expanded preparation. It in fact allows you to prepare more spells than an Arcanist can. Wowie, that hit that right on the fucking head, didn't it? This gives us an extra spell prepared of the highest level we can currently cast as an Arcanist when we choose the feat. Or, later on, 2 spells prepared of at least 1 level lower than the highest level spell we can currently cast. They have to be chosen immediately, so on and so forth. 1, 3, 5 by level 5 gives us 2 extra first level spells prepared and 1 second. Since they never got around to good scaling cantrips in 1st edition Pathfinder, having the extra spell slots means you don't immediately have to resort to crossbowism. And in low level play, truly, it can be the difference between life and death. Leadership at level 7, assuming your campaign will allow it. I'm making the presumption that it's okay, because again, the goal is to, hey, you're that NPC who owns that tavern, and we really like that voice that the GM made for you. Come follow us on our adventures, and have a really big fucking con score about it. Did you wanna turn into a dragon? You did? Oh, that's wonderful. Then at level 9, we'll take extra Arcanist Exploit for Dimensional Slide. We'll circle back to the why so later on, here in a minute. Then it's Quicken Spell to cast as swift actions. Then, I don't think I've ever willingly taken this out of a like, oh god, this is so good for this build. Welcome to 1st edition Pathfinder and all the stuff that exists. Ascendant Spell. For a spell slot 5 levels higher than the spell's actual level, you can modify the spell you're casting to imitate the mythic version of that spell. It doesn't count as a mythic spell for the purposes of other things, unless you're a mythic creature. I'm guessing we're not. I'm further guessing we can't augment this. More on that when we talk about the spells. The interaction's kind of hilarious, TBH. Then Extend spell. I know we get a capstone like it at 20th level, but hey, we might not get there. Then Spell Perfection, choosing either Enlarge Person or Reduce Person, depending on how many people in your party are damaging with Dexterity or Strength. This will allow us to apply meta magic to that spell without increasing its level or casting time. Then at 19th, Improved Initiative, because if you got this far, why not? But also, when you get to 19th, for sure, retrain Spell Perfection for Improved Initiative, and then put Spell Perfection in the 19th level feat slot for the mass version of whichever spell is the one that's right for your party, so more people can get sweet buffs more quickly. And speaking of sweet buffs, on to the exploits out the gate. Philanthropic Magic. The ability says when the Arcanist targets one or more allies, excluding themselves with the spell, they can expend 1 arcane point from their arcane reservoir in order to grant those allies a number of temp HP equal to the spell's level. These temp HP stack with other temp HP sources, but they don't stack from multiple philanthropic magic triggers. They last for a minute per caster level or until expended. Because our whole shtick is casting transmutation buff spells on the party, it's not a lot. By no means are we healing, but at the beginning of the game, a single point of temporary HP can definitely be the difference between life and push-ups. And in the mid to late game, more temporary HP makes whoever's actually patching y'all up have a slightly easier go of it. Again, yes-anding that thing we do. Our level 3 exploit is replaced, and then at level 5, we'll take Counterspell. Counterspell allows us to expend 1 point from our arcane reservoir to attempt to counter a spell as it is being cast. We must identify the spell via a spellcraft check. This is arbitrarily easy for an intelligence-based character most of the time. If we do, we can attempt to counter the spell as an immediate action and by expending an available Arcanist spell slot of a level at least 1 higher than the level of the spell being cast. Doing so requires a dispel check as if using dispel magic. If we happen to have that spell prepped today, we can expend that spell slot and get a +5 bonus on the dispel check. This doesn't trigger anything else, but this is one of the most efficient ways to stop magic from happening. And since we aren't using our immediate action for anything else, again, this could be very life or death. It's only stopping a first level spell when we take it. If that's magic missile, that's a considerable amount of damage that didn't go through. We all know how bad a well-placed Grease or Entangle can stop everything. We're a very fair sort of battlefield control, who also makes the people who like to do damage that much better at it. Build looks real fun, not gonna lie, because it wouldn't be one of my builds without a little bit of spooky, scary, Cthulhian stuff, blood tears. As a move action, we can begin to weep blood from our eyes. I kind of really like this, actually, here recording this, thinking about it from the point of view of the Martyr Aasimar. Like, that's spicy. Whilst weeping blood, the Arcanist's vision is blurred by that blood, and they treat all gaze attacks as if they were averting their eyes. Creatures don't gain concealment against them. At a distance of greater than 30 feet, all creatures or objects viewed by the Arcanist gain concealment, blah. As a standard action, however, the Arcanist can flick the blood from their teary eyes at their opponents, splattering all creatures in a 15-foot cone. They must will save to avoid becoming staggered for a round. This is a really good get out of jail free card for when everybody's in front of you. Obviously orient the cone such that it doesn't hit people you care about. But shutting off pouncing full attack builds helps your marshals win the race, or helps you win the race the fuck out of there if you get surrounded by things that want to beat you up. At level 9, when we get the ability to cast personal spells at a range of touch alongside it via a feat, Dimensional Slide allows us to expend 1 point from our reservoir to create a dimensional crack that we can step through to reach another location. It's used as part of a move or withdraw action. It lets you move up to 10 feet per Arcanist level to any location you can see. That counts as 5 feet of movement, which can only be done once per round and doesn't provoke. But for 5 feet of movement, moving 70 feet, A, gets us the hell out of the way of things, and B, can get us to immediately, hey, wait, you need to be suddenly much stronger than you were. Run up, touch them. Boom, now they're a dragon or something. At level 11, we're borrowing from the wizard. We're grabbing an arcane discovery for Idealize, which does everything we want and more. When we cast transmutation spells to grant an enhancement bonus to an ability score, that bonus is increased by 2, eventually by 4 by level 20, which means this plus the things the Brownfurs get mean that our bull's strength is a +8 to strength, and from level 11 we are outrunning the belts that everyone is buying. Next up, Counter Drain lets us, when we successfully use our counterspell exploit, regain a number of points to our reservoir. Level 2 or lower spells don't count. Spells of 3rd level and higher restore 1 point to our reservoir for every 3 spell levels. Your mileage may vary if there aren't a lot of casters coming at you. Stands to reason you're gonna run into something that can cast. This fuels the thing that we want to do for longer. We are our party's battery and we don't want to run out of gas. Greater Counterspell lets us expend any Arcanist spell slot of the same level or greater than the spell to be countered, instead of spell level +1, giving us a little bit more versatility. Then Quick Study So Goddamn Late lets us prepare a spell in place of an existing spell by expending 1 point from our arcane reservoir. It's a full round action, it provokes. We have to be able to read our book. Oh god, I wish I prepped Air Bubble today. Hang on. Flip, flip, flip. There it is. Then, lastly, alongside Improved Initiative, why not grab a familiar that also gives us Improved Initiative? If you made it this far, hey, why not, you know? This build feels very done by about 11th level, so everything else forward is just gas. For our key magic items, this is normally the part where I'm like, hey, big 6, follow this card! But it turns out we're better at casting the big 6 than the big 6 is, so look at us go. Idealize plus Brownfur Transmuter turns a baby bull's strength into a +8 strength or a +8 to our int for the cost of 2 points from the arcane pool and a spell slot. This saves us a bunch of money and can also save the party a bunch of money too. Honestly, on a 1-to-1, if you convert the amount of money they would spend on their belts and stuff and buy an equal amount of runestones of power to give you extra spell slots so you could cast more of these in a given day, you'd then have so much extra money to do with whatever in the hell you wanted. It's so ludicrously efficient, it's almost hilarious. Likewise, for only a level 1 spell, or sometimes more with Ascendant spell, Mythic Enlarged Person turns that fighter you're running around with huge. The Barbarian's Butchering Axe just went from too many d6 to even more too many dice. With everything we're doing, a +8 size bonus to strength for a -4 to dex and a -2 on attack rolls and AC, to again make them better at stuff, give them a bigger reach, give them more damage dice. The mass variant of this, not being mythic but hitting all of your strength-based characters at once, is again very, very efficient buff, and I think oftentimes we need to hit them real hard bread and butter. The rest sort of depends on the party. There are a lot of transmutation spells with a range of personal that we can then throw around a bunch that don't necessarily modify ability scores, like Expeditious Retreat to go faster, Long Arm to give someone reach, Resinous Skin to turn the Martial into a Mimic, on top of a bunch of other mechanical benefits. Weapons that strike that person who's wading into combat, wanting to be struck, become stuck to them, unless they pass a reflex save, followed by a strength check. This rips plot swords just straight out of somebody's hand really fast. That's fucking hilarious. Transformation for a 6th level spell slot gives a +4 enhancement bonus to strength, dex, and con. One of those is a +8 because Arcanist things. A +4 natural armor bonus to AC, +5 competence bonus, stacking with most things we're doing on fort saves, proficiency with all simple and martial weapons, blah. The base attack bonus of the target becomes your character level. Put this on the rogue, the war priest, anyone who's not full bab, and watch how quickly they just wade through combat. That's fucking terrifying. Iron Body gives you egregious DR over adamantine, a bunch of immunities. You take half damage from acid and fire, a plus turning into 10 enhancement bonus to strength from everything we do. It slows down dex and speed, hurts your arcane spell failure stuff. You can't drink, so you can't drink potions. You, turns out, sink to the bottom of a river, but get really good at holding lines and picking up stuff that was dropped in the bottom of rivers. Wow, you're such a good person now. But I think the most hilarious of them, of all the transmutation spells that target at a range of personal that we can send to a range of touch, Time Stop. That's fucking wild. That's 1d4 +1 rounds of anybody doing whatever they want, uninterrupted. Oh my god, we gotta send somebody running right now, and for some reason I don't want to teleport because I've used all my spell slots for transmutation things and that's off flavor. Hey you, person who's really fast, take a 1d4 +1 rounds head start. Get back home. Oh god, it's gonna take too long to get through that door. Hey rogue, here's some extra rounds. Disable that device. Holy shit, what do you mean the boss monster showed up with half the party dead? Hey cleric, you have some extra rounds, please, oh gods, help us. Or, you know, perhaps more classically speaking, oh god, the fight is starting and I don't have all of the buffs up, let me cast my buffs 1 second. And a bunch of other spells as well. Not going to jam this one in the optimized party because, well, really, it doesn't feel like the kind of build to show up to just wreck things. This is the kind of build to show up to make everyone else wreck things, which is like my favorite kind of people at the table. Hey, you want to do something cool? Here you go. Bam! So far as where I would play this, looking at everything that it can do, this is a fantastic build for any campaign that's on a very fast railroad and fast timeline that doesn't have time for item crafting, because you don't need to drop 6 months because the Transmuter will transmute while we're doing shit, and that problem is solved. The stark other side of that coin is a world in which you're playing a campaign that's maybe not necessarily low magic, but at least low magic item, because you are the magic item. In a party that's just hanging out to have fun, you can help them compete with threats that are bigger and scarier than the things that they've built. In parties that have showed up with things that are bigger and scarier, the Brownfur Transmuter helps push even farther. Like the Guildmaster once said, indeed this gets the combat multiplier even higher in the coolest way. But that is all the time I have for this one. What do y'all think? Arcanists, Transmuters, casting Time Stop. Who is the hilarious stereotypical character in the character diaspora to cast a Time Stop on, who can normally not cast Time Stop on themselves? Let me know in the comments. For now, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.